We gather this evening at an interesting time in our country's history. Never in my lifetime did I ever expect to witness such a high degree of public interest in the day-to-day implications of our free market economy. I think it's fair to say that our country's blind faith in the free market has been inalterably shaken, and that people are finally coming to the realization that economics matter. I know that some of us feel a lot of anxiety right now. We have some bad news we'll be hearing about. Clearly, the stakes are high, because the decisions we make in the coming months will significantly impact the economic quality of our lives, our standing with the international community, and the future health of our planet. So tonight's forum is an important one. I'm glad you're here. For it is the goal of this event to educate one another about the problems with existing free trade agreements and to explore some opportunities for change. Yes, without a doubt, change is a coming, and it will be defined by the type of conversations that we'll be having tonight. Now, many of you here know that First Unitarian Church has always played a big part in this type of work, hosting forums just like this one in order to educate and mobilize the public in support of a fairer, more just society. Some of you may have even been here 10 years ago for the teach-in that mobilized people to participate in the WTO protest in Seattle. Anybody here go to that? I'm happy to report that the church's Economic Justice Action Group has been organizing similar events ever since. It's important to acknowledge just how far we've come over that time period. 10 years ago, most people had never even heard of the WTO. Today, it's the subject of a Hollywood movie. 10 years ago, many people were still ambivalent about the concept of free trade. Today, the pollsters at the Pew Research Center report, and I quote, "There is now broad agreement that free trade negatively affects wages, jobs, and economic growth in the United States. By greater than 6-1, the public says free trade agreements result in job losses rather than in new jobs." So, people in this room deserve credit for helping to bring about this shift in public opinion. The education and outreach and protest that people have engaged in here and around the world has made a real difference. The free trade area of the Americas, which many of us oppose, has been defeated. The WTO expansion, which seemed so unstoppable in the 1990s, has been derailed. Furthermore, and I take great part in this, countries are now refusing to take new loans from the International Monetary Fund and are creating their own new paths for finance. So, in spite of the troubles on Wall Street and Washington, D.C., this is a hopeful time. That's not to say that the rich and powerful interests have stopped trying to expand their free trade policies. They are continuing to push them, and it makes sense for us to continue educating ourselves about the dangers in their agenda and to continue organizing against it. But given how far we've come over the past 10 years, perhaps it's also time for us to shift away from playing defense all the time and start playing some offense, if I want to use a sports metaphor. Maybe it's time for us to start talking about how fair trade policies could help the economy. Maybe it's time to start envisioning and articulating that what we're going to do together to turn this broken system around. These are the topics of tonight's forum. So let me tell you about what the format will be this evening. First, we're going to hear from a panel of Oregon's labor, environmental, and fair trade leaders about where we are in regards to trade and where we might be heading. Then, we're going to invite some people with first-hand experience involving the problems with existing trade pacts to share their stories and their perspectives. Next, we have invited Oregon House Speaker and senatorial candidate Jeff Merkley to respond to what is said and share his views on international trade policy. We will end our discussion with a short presentation on next steps, including ways in which you can get involved. Now, let me point out that Senator Gordon Smith was also invited to participate in this evening's forum, but he declined the invitation. I'd now like to introduce our esteemed panelists. It'll go in order, closest to me. The first is Tom Chamberlain, who's president of the Oregon AFL-CIO, the state's largest federation of labor unions. The AFL-CIO has been involved in the fight against misguided trade agreements at least since NAFTA was first introduced. Many unions with the AFL-CIO have seen their memberships hit hard by trade deals. Tom is going to be discussing that impact and how it has had an impact on job loss and wage stagnation across this state. Next to him, Erica Mahard is the Columbia Group Chair of the Oregon Sierra Club. She has been very active in the fight against free trade deals in her Oregon and has worked for organizations fighting them in Washington, D.C. Erica is going to be discussing something we often neglect in these discussions, the impact that free trade agreements have on the environment, particularly global warming. Next is Ken Allen. He's the Executive Director of Oregon AFSCME. AFSCME stands for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. It's a union representing public sector workers. Some of you may be wondering what state government employees have in a trade debate. Ken is going to discuss the potential for privatization of public services and the continued offshoring of service sector jobs if trade policies continue on their current path. Lastly, Arthur Stamalis is director of the Oregon Fair Trade Campaign. This is a statewide coalition of labor, environmental, and human rights organizations working together to fight the expansion of the NAFTA model and instead promote a positive vision for international trade. Arthur will be talking about a new piece of fair trade legislation called the Trade Act and about opportunities for change. I'd like to now invite Tom to come up, our first panelist.